This is Daniel Cadiz, and I am doing my presentation and have been doing my Twitter reports on the country of Iran. The basics. Of course, the full name of the country of Iran is the Islamic Republic of Iran. The government type is a theocratic republic with a legal system based on secular and Islamic law. Now, this is not exactly the same as Sharia law, and Western thought does have a different idea as to what it looks like to be under this system. It is a system, and it does have cultural ramifications, but it is not exactly what we see in the movies or anything like that. Their GDP is 1.382 trillion, which is a good GDP, and their growth rate has been very modest, with a 2014 growth rate of 4.3, which is rather spectacular, but of course that is in sort of a rise after the large drop in 2013 of negative 1.9, and even before that there was a much larger economy, and we'll see that later. Sanctions were lifted in January of 2016. This last year, though all the controversy has been very much a hot topic in the United States, the sanctions lifted in June 2016 have made it an amazingly interesting time to be watching Iran. Of course, to remind everybody about our view of Iran, they have a Tier 3 rating system that deals with trafficking. That means the country is not doing very much to sort of combat this international problem. This is only one example of the social structure, social constructs that are happening in Iran right now. Here we're looking at the Hofstede cultural ratings. Of course, compared to the US, it is very easy to see where Iran differs in terms of individualism, in terms of indulgence. Those are the largest discrepancies. Power distance, it is no surprise that they are higher than the US, especially with their legal and political styles. We have a long-term orientation, which is not very high, but some of that, we do wonder how much of that is not just cultural, but also legal, in terms of how they apply their culture to their legal and political dealings. Looking at the JEDI score, we're looking at Iran compared to the region and the world. Now, some of the top 3 points to look at here that really explain why Iran is not doing well, other than internalization, which is towards the end, that is quite low of a score. The product innovation, competition, and the risk acceptance are some of the lowest scores that we see here, alongside cultural support. These scores specifically will probably, to some degree, exemplify why business in Iran had been difficult beforehand, even without the sanctions, and why it may continue to be difficult. And we're going to see some of the reports that I've submitted to show that some of the increase in productivity in Iran is not exactly as expected. Let's take a look. At the beginning of this year, the sanctions lifted meant that businesses around the world had their eyes on Iran. Of course, that meant a lot of negotiations were coming about, but that also meant that a lot of businesses were going to have to compete with local businesses, and that's fine. Iran was ready for the Western world to come in. The people there had already developed businesses such as knockoff fast food chains that sounded similar to the food chains that we know today here in America, such as KFC and McDonald's, but with just a twist of name and not as quite a good a quality. They are ready for some sort of new investment from the West. But are they providing on what is promised of their economic ability? Some stories would say no. Iran's oil market returning, not yet fulfilling grand promises, was reported by Bloomberg. And of course, then we had the naysayers, people that were ready to say, remember, Iran might not be fulfilling its nuclear agreement, and if that's true, that creates a large business uncertainty, because they would have to pull out as soon as possible, as soon as more sanctions would be placed on Iran, if this were to happen. Of course, this delay recovery is showing just the initial drop from 2012, but also how little of a recovery the 2016 sanctions have been providing, although the rate is positive and we do still have a lot of time left. Moving beyond Twitter now, we have sort of the current day. The past couple weeks have shown a lot of intriguing information in Iran that's coming about in terms of what they see the future is in business. You have Iran providing heavy water, a new commodity towards the West. We have crude output to reach pre-sanction levels finally, but hopefully by June. We have Iran dispatching workforces in 5 states. This means that there'll be offices in different countries that help Iranians find jobs and work through their jobs. We have reestablished shipping lines, banking barriers being removed, and Air France and old companies finally arriving for the first time in a long time, especially since these sanctions. So, continuing, what else is next? It's definitely not economic relationships with the United States, but they are looking for agreement. They are, of course, seeking the market stability despite wanting growth, and this growth being somewhat inadequate is pushing them to talk again with the United States. Of course, this is a very intricate conversation that needs to happen between two very different worlds. And that's my presentation on Iran. Thank you very much for paying attention and listening. If you want to go to the Twitter reports, all of my Twitter reports are in that one link. That's just the search for the hashtag BCIB16, and these are all the other reports that I used for how Iran is today. Thank you very much. Bye.